Welcome back, everybody. This is the Decentralized Tech Livestream. I've been a little offline for the last 2 or 3 weeks because I've been traveling the world, Dubai, Toronto, Switzerland. I've been at all kinds of crypto events all over the place, talking to company founders, with KOLs, with investors in this space. And one of the really cool people I got to run into in my travels was Luis from Mawari. So, what we're going to talk about today is what I believe is actually the most important emergent category within crypto that has ever emerged, and that's DePIN. DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. You could kind of think of it as like Airbnb. You know how Airbnb doesn't own hotel rooms, or Uber does not own the cars. Well, in a decentralized physical infrastructure network, the network doesn't really own the hardware assets. It's the community that owns the hardware assets. The network operates a protocol that links everything together and facilitates the provisioning and integration of all of this hardware technology. And that's what Beamable is doing. We're launching a DePIN for game servers. So Luis is doing something a little bit different, and we're going to get deep into that. We're going to share all kinds of information about what Mawari does. We'll probably talk about Beamable as well, but we'll also talk about the big picture here. What does it mean to be building DePIN? What does it mean for crypto? What does it mean for the internet in general? Because I actually think that DePIN is one of those categories that's really going to change the internet that isn't necessarily even targeted at a crypto native user. So let's turn it over to Luis. Luis, welcome, first of all. Thanks so much for joining me here and being part of this today. Why don't you introduce yourself? And then let's start with the big picture. I gave my description of DePIN. How do you think of it?
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me. Hello, everyone. A pleasure to be here. I'm Luis, founder and CEO of Mawari. I've been running this company since 2017, so now it's been a while. And yeah, we've always focused on how to break the bottlenecks of real-time 3D. DePIN is actually a very good way to achieve this, but I'll explain later why. So just in general, DePIN, what it is for me on how I see it is actually last night I was talking about this in a dinner, like what are the success factors for a DePIN per se to be successful. First of all, the way actually we started looking into DePIN when it was not even called DePIN, it was that it solves a business model problem. That's the first of all. That it can be a technology innovation, but first and foremost, there's a business model or a business bottleneck that is getting something stuck. Second, once you kind of check mark like, okay, there's a business model problem, that the technology enabling the breaking that bottleneck of the business model actually works better or has some tangible benefit if it's distributed versus centralized, because there's always this debate like okay, what is better, decentralized or centralized? And it's kind of like to be honest, very silly conversation. I mean, for some cases, being efficient and centralized is good, but some other cases, being distributed and resilient is what really matters. So the second check mark, okay, if the use case actually makes sense to be distributed, okay, and you're solving a business problem, great. Then finally, there's demand for it, because that has been also kind of like, since you've been following blockchain for a while, one of the biggest issues that there's always kind of like a great concept about something that needs to be built, but there hasn't really been product market fit or real demand. So if you have those three elements, then the flywheel starts, and really that's when tech innovation and business model innovation has that immense potential that Deepin brings.
Yeah, let me add to that a little bit. So I think you just hit the nail on the head in terms of what I think is most compelling about DPIN, which is typically DPIN is solving a real world business problem. It could be anything from the need for access to compute, both GPU and CPU. It could be things like weather stations and weather data collection. It could be what Helium is doing, which is essentially Wi-Fi access on a broad basis. So it solves real world problems that already exist. Like we're not inventing a new problem to be solved. I think unfortunately crypto more often than not in a lot of projects they become these solutions in search of a problem, but DeepIn is kind of the opposite. There's the problem that already exists, and then DeepIn just happens to be a very capital efficient way to address it. But the thing that shouldn't be lost in that is the user, the customer, the beneficiary of DeepIn projects is not a crypto native person necessarily. They could be, but they may not be someone who really cares that much about crypto. The cool thing about this is all these quote unquote Web 2 users, which by the way, no one outside of Web 3 even uses this term Web 2, but a lot of you are Web 3, so we'll use it for this conversation. But this is Web 2 users. So in my business at Beamable, we deliver game servers, right? So games is basically an online service business today. It's 95% of the revenue in this business is online games of one kind or another, whether it's multiplayer or asynchronous multiplayer or just online social systems and competitive systems. Virtually all games that are revenue generating are online games. And that just means they need lots of game servers. They need actual computers in the cloud that run the multiplayer services and make it happen. So now all game studios have to be a customer of that. So they have that need already, but blockchain ends up being this highly efficient way to do things like maintain an order book to match the sellers of servers with the game studios who need it. It's also decentralized in the sense that any data center can leave the network, but the whole network remains. You just source your equipment and your servers elsewhere. And I think it also means that you can have a whole ecosystem emerge because people don't really want to build software add-ons when it's individual siloed vendors, but they do when it's open source, broad ecosystems. And that's kind of some of the benefits that we see. But the really compelling thing about DeepIn is this idea that it solves real world business problems for a predominantly Web 2 user who needs access to that. And I'm wondering, does that parallel what you see in your protocol, what you're building at Mawari?
Yes, of course. I mean, I guess you've been to AWE, the Augmented World Expo. I mean, people in extended reality are not really crypto natives at all. Our end users are people that buy a Quest 3, buy a Apple Vision Pro, and that's it. I mean, they could join the crypto economy, but yeah, in the end, I mean, just like Netflix streams movies to your phone or to your TV, you really don't care whether it's a decentralized infrastructure, whether it's powered by crypto or not. You just pay to Netflix the monthly amount and you expect the best quality of service. Which this is also something very important, I guess, in terms of DeepIn. DeepIn does build that resilience and does allow you to be competitive with that service level agreement if done right. So in our case, we stream 3D content to XR headsets. So the end user is, I wouldn't even call it Web 2 because users of XR are quite sophisticated as well. Just they're not just in crypto.
Yeah. The Web 2 is this funny term that could apply. Like highly immersive 3D graphics games have nothing to do with the web, but in the game industry, Web 3 game developers call those Web 2 games, even though they have nothing to do with a web browser. And it's kind of the same. It's just a funny term. I always say that like Web 3, please, whoever is in charge of Web 3 as a term, you need a chief marketing officer. We need someone who actually can come up with terms that people can embrace and use across the industry, not in this crypto native silo. So please,
Right.
someone apply for the job of CMO of Web3 and fix these things. But okay, so let's go into a little more depth on Mawari, because I'd love to like understand your use case a little bit more and also share it with everybody who's tuning in today. And if you want to show videos or content or anything, like feel free to show anything you want. As you're preparing for that, I also just want to just send the message out to the community here who's joining in. We got a couple hundred people who've already tuned in live to watch this today. And there's a reason why we do this as a live show. I used to do YouTube a few years back, and I still use YouTube for broadcasting live, but not for pre-recorded stuff. Why? Because it's the best way to actually engage you. I see a couple comments here from folks who are saying, put your community first, make your community number one. Absolutely. And this is part of that. You, as community members, can actually participate live in this conversation. And you can do that by posting a comment on any of these channels. We're posting on X, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. We're on all of these broadcasting live. So if you have a question or a comment that's pertinent to decentralized tech, to DePIN, to Mawari, to Beamable, by all means, go ahead and post that. We would love to hear from you. And I will say, if you want to join live, we are just crazy enough to do that as well. So if you want to join in live video and share your ideas, hey, it's an open forum. And Oscar will track comments and DM you and send you a link to StreamYard where we could even pull you in. So please use it as an opportunity to participate live. And if you're watching this in one of the replays, we love you just as much, but think about joining in live next time and asking a question, please. All right, Luis, why don't you take it away? Let's dive a little bit more into Mawari and what you guys do.
Sure. I think it would be good first to share a video that just tells it just shows visually what we do, because it's sometimes it's hard to just with word to picture what is the result. So it's a video that we did in collaboration with T-Mobile. So I'll just go ahead and play it.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I slept in my cat bed. I woke up, didn't even have to be anywhere, because you see me in Dallas, but I'm next to my cat bed. I am meeting all my fans in Dallas.
Okay.
So it's a big day, darling.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's a big day.
Okay, so what's happening here? And I will get very technical. So we have an actress with a motion capture suit and a Quest Pro. So her motion data, her facial expressions, and her voice is being streamed to one of our servers. She's, as it says, she's in our office in Canada, and we have servers deployed across the world. In this case, it's in the US, so it was close to Texas. And what this server in turn does is a server with a GPU gets all that data and integrates it into the avatar, and then the avatar and gives motion, voice to the avatar, and our technology renders this and streams it in real time to the Quest 3 headset that you see here. So for this to feel in true real time, this needs to happen in less than 32 milliseconds. So it's a round-trip communication, round-trip loop of communication of 32 milliseconds. And this could not happen if we didn't have the GPU server located close to the end user. Because one of the biggest problems with XR is that, real-time 3D, you need to have everything within close distance of where the rendering machine is. With XR, you're putting the display on your eyes. So anything that is actually 12 and 16 milliseconds, but we have a technology to compensate all the way to 32, 40 milliseconds, would give you a motion sickness, because it's basically like you're moving the display to a remote location. That's pretty much what cloud rendering and streaming is, and for XR, this is why it has been very challenging. So with that being said, if we were to have a centralized cloud location where the round trip would be more than 100 milliseconds, or for example, today I'm in Japan, and I would be streaming this real-time rendering all the way to the US, it would arrive with enough latency for you wearing the headset make you sick. So what our use case, it does solve a business problem, but we have that unique feature of that without actually having a distributed network, we cannot actually provide the service. Now, where does this centralization comes from? Is basically building a distributed network of GPUs across the globe to tailor millions of users. Requires billions, if not trillions, of capital expenditure. And right now, for the hyperscalers, the current demand of XR does not justify to invest in this. So back in 2021, we were starting to gain significant traction with our technology. The problem was scaling. We partner, I'm not going to mention, with one of the hyperscalers. I'm not going to mention the name, but they couldn't help us. Like, they say, we cannot justify having GPUs in all the cities that you are mentioning. And that's when I started looking around, and it was very inspiring to see Helium and Render Network to really bootstrap supply in such a compelling and fast way. So that's when we decided, okay, so Web3 is the next stage for our company and how we scale the business.
So this almost brings up a side topic that I'd love to get into, Luis. So you mentioned the billions of capital that it would be required to kind of address this use case. So there's a lot of ways you can get capital. You could do a startup, you could raise equity, you could start funding it with cash. You could wait until Amazon eventually does it, but we want this solution sooner. Why a token? Like, I think that's one of the questions that almost every DePIN founder gets asked at some point, which is, why does this need to be tokenized? What are the advantages of that? What are the disadvantages of it? So what's your answer? And I can give mine too after we hear from you.
Sure. Well, more even the token, well, we looked into, okay, so we need to build a distributed network. Yes, you can build a distributed network by raising equity, but it is in any case a huge capital expenditure. And when the demand is not proven yet, I mean, I had a hard time raising, because it's like, who are you? How you are going to be the AWS or GCP, right? Then on the other hand, I would see other Silicon Valley investors, and they would say, well, just get a contract with Snapchat and get they are AR, right? And if you get me this LOI with Snapchat, then okay, let's do your Series A with a 200 million valuation, blah 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 blah. It's like, right, okay, no, this is not going to work out. So two things. First of all, with blockchain, we can keep track, like you say, of who streamed for how much, whether actually even the network provided the correct bandwidth, the correct latency, and so many things, and we can keep that in check transparently, and that DLT actually is amazing, because it allows to align the incentives of very different parties, because we have a very different companies providing the GPUs for us in Asia than we have in the US, and everybody needs to have that level of transparency. Second, right now we are actually running what we relabeled it. We have a very good marketing guy. You can, it's Jose. So maybe he can come up to rebrand Web3. So he rebranded the node cells per se to a decentralized infrastructure offering. Why we did that? First of all, because I think most of the node cells have been more in gaming per se, but not actual games, not infrastructure. So we are more of a deepin project. So we wanted to kind of like just emphasize that this is a different type of node cell per se. But why the token? Just to go back to that. So you buy a license for a Mawari Guardian node. You can install our Guardian node software on your computer, and then start running a checker node or the Guardian node on your computer and start receiving incentives. Those incentives is for the work that you provide. We have two different tasks or missions. One of the missions is to actually help us build the network. We're building a network that will have the scale of the internet today. So we need to simulate this with millions of users, but we need that data. So even though there's not the demand of millions of XR headsets concurrently trying to stream content, we need to simulate that. And that's how we're going to prepare for the future. So nobody's going to offer their device for free at a millions of people scale. So there needs to be a way to incentivize that, and that's the token. And the second task that the Guardian nodes do is the actual verification of all the content and all the data that was correct for a stream, that the rendering server actually is online and it has enough compute power for the experiences and so on and so forth. But that's for the actual commercial use cases that we're already working on. So for that, instead of just having a portion of the token pool, we actually just do okay, so the network fees is X amount, so 20% of that net revenue actually gets redistributed to the people that provided the work. So similar to Uber, to Airbnb. So we're doing this hybrid model. I mean, Uber and Airbnb bootstrap with capital funding, but token incentives is a way to bootstrap a new economy from our point of view.
Yeah, so all forms of capital have some kind of efficiency associated with them. So I think the bottom line is that, at least in the current meta of global financing, a token can be a much more capital efficient financing model than raising potentially like infrastructure projects can be billions of dollars of capital. So whether you're going, I mean, probably not even possible to get that in debt unless you were a huge company, or if you had the cash. From an equity standpoint, not that feasible either. Occasionally you can raise massive amounts of capital, but then you have incredible amounts of dilution if you're going to raise that much capital. So tokens are just more efficient. So I think that's the financial aspect. The thing that's really interesting to me about tokens is it's actually a different business model as well, because once you have this network, you have all these different stakeholders. You have the people who are providing supply, and they are different individuals and entities. You have the people who need to access that supply, who are effectively the customers of the network. They're a diverse group. I think you pointed to how global that customer base can be. And you've got even people like working on the protocol and adding things to it and extending it through the software ecosystem that can merge around it. So you've got all these very different stakeholders. Tokens in principle can align the interests of all these stakeholders a lot better than, say, a shareholder organization, which is ultimately interested in profit extraction. And the example I often give is like, let's just look at what happened with Amazon themselves in some previous examples. You were talking about how they didn't want to build this network soon enough because it wasn't a big enough opportunity. Well, we've also seen them do things like have an API for, in my case, the game industry, have thousands of game developers on it. They had this platform that they acquired called GameSparks. They shut down GameSparks and they forced everybody to go figure it out for themselves, most of which just ended up having shut down their games because it wasn't financially feasible to like retool the whole game with another API. So in that case, I think if you had a tokenized economy where there were people who essentially had economic interest in the protocol, economic interest in providing supply across a broad base of suppliers, people who were interested in it from the standpoint of being a customer, it aligns those interests more and it introduces much more interesting governance systems than a traditional shareholder system, because now people who actually care about the network can propose changes. I mean, of course, every protocol is also different. I'm actually not sure how you're thinking about that in governance, but from a Beamable standpoint, for example, having decentralized governance is going to be very, very important for how we think about it. We want to involve the community, whether you're a supplier, a customer, a software developer, in proposing improvements to the protocol, and really being part of that decision-making process over time as we turn over more and more control to the community, as opposed to like the centralized control of a company who makes profit-driven decisions.
Right. I do agree with this. The power of the community is very important, and this is the main inspiration I had by Render and by Helium. It was bootstrapped by the community, and effectively, yes, having a vested interest is you have an army per se that will promote and work for the same mission and ambition. As a matter of fact, right now, we have a very strong community in Japan, and the community themselves. One of them works at a TV station, and he convinced people in the TV station to have us be interviewed on national TV in Japan, which would be very unlikely for any startup. And it's like, wow, okay. And it's not like, okay, give us, like $20,000, $100,000 just so that you have a small section on a TV show. It was a full feature, and it was like an earned media in the end. And this is just because the community believes in the projects that are proud to be part of this and want to spread the word. So absolutely, I do believe in that.
Yeah, we started to discover some even unanticipated benefits of starting to have a really large community that has this vested interest in the future of the protocol. One of the things we discovered over the last few weeks is we can also help customers on our platform get players for their games. So all of our customers are game studios building games. And we have a questing platform, which we conceived of as something that would help our own community in terms of like the promotional type stuff that you're talking about, raising awareness, having a stake in the protocol, uncovering interesting ways of describing the way the protocol could work and new use cases and whatnot. Well, we started creating quests for this community saying, go try out a game that had launched on our platform. And it was pretty tremendous. Like we were getting games suddenly with like 100,000 new Discord members, like in days. And in a Web3 game case, I think they minted like 140,000 new NFTs for this community. And it wasn't just, and like real activity, like not just people who were like showing up and clicking for engagement points, like showing up and actually minting NFTs at their cost. So this was like really an eye opener for me of like how powerful these communities can be, that they also wanted to support the games on the network and go and try them out. Now, will they stick with the games? Will they engage there long term? That's a TBD, but maybe with millions of people, we'll actually be able to channel audiences towards people in a way that we weren't aware that we could do in the past. But that is a really interesting thing that we discovered. I'm curious what else you're discovering with your community and like what the benefits of this tokenized economy is, even just beyond like the governance that I talked about or the capital efficiency of it. Do you think that you'll ultimately discover all kinds of new use cases that you haven't even thought of yet in the platform itself?
I do think so, and that's the point. It's new technology. We're providing it for people to build, and we have a very specific vision. Right now, we're working with avatars, whether they are AI or puppeted by a real human. But who knows? Maybe someone will use this technology in a very different way, and it does open that range of things that otherwise you wouldn't have access to. So that's very true, and this is just going back to your topic. Sorry, because it's very important because we are in the XR industry, and XR needs demand. There are not that many users for XR developers, and I've been an XR developer before starting Mawari, and it's tough. Like, okay, so you create an application and you have very little audience. So that's also, yes, a great benefit that I saw is like, okay, so come build with us, because actually we have the power of this community that will be able to test your application, give you feedback, and actually ultimately, if it's good enough, become an end user. The other benefit that I see is, yes, there's capital efficiency, but also there could be, yeah, kind of like in Web3 gaming there are like gaming guilds, like they're starting to become like sub communities of subcultures around these communities that really get the right trends of what's going on with your product. So you can also get a lot of direct product feedback with different personas, not just one persona that you imagine is your ideal customer, and you can get it through a community. So it's also capital efficient in the end.
So I'd love to dig into XR a little bit more too. So two-part question. So in the game industry, there are some things that are a little bit similar to what you were describing in the sense of very low latency and kind of immersive real-time continuous experience is also a part of many games. I'm curious about, like, technically speaking, is that the kind of the same thing in XR, or does XR even have further requirements from a technology standpoint beyond that makes it stand out, sort of distinct from, say, a first-person shooter game or something? That's part one. And then I'd just love you to talk a little bit about, like, where is XR going? Like, I think we do actually have a lot of devices kind of at scale now. If we look at the Quest as a platform, like very comparable to a major console, for example, in terms of usership on that device. And curious how you think that market is going. Is it starting to lift off now with the Quest? How is the unit sales compare to actual level of engagement on the platform? And what is the future of this industry look like over the next, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from your standpoint? So I asked you a whole bunch of things. Feel free to unpack it any way you want. There's the technology piece, but also where's that market going?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So on the technology piece, indeed, low latency is very important. You call it very very well. Like for a first-person shooter, the immediate feedback that you're feeling that you're shooting and all that action is is very important. So this is one of the reasons for cloud gaming per se. Having a first-person shooter is very difficult because there's this latency with the server. So XR is the same because in a game on a console, you are moving the player, and you need to have that immediate feedback. And again, as I say, that's within the screen, so there's still also a latency between your eye and the screen, right? But when XR, the screen is right in your eyes, so there's even less latency. So if things happen with us very little of delay, your brain starts telling us, okay, this is not immersive, this is off. And with our technology, basically, we decide to do what we call a split rendering. There are some things that are not tradable. They need to be rendered on device, otherwise you lose that illusion. But there are some other things that are like heavy, high quality content that is interactive but does not need that sub-millisecond round trip latency, can be rendered then on a remote server. And we have found a way that actually, with parallel processing, that we can mitigate that and really provide super mega interactive, like you saw, like you feel you're talking to the person in real time and with no lag. So from that point of view, that has been a bottleneck on XR because the devices do a lot of processing just to do the spatial computing, calculating your environment, everything, and then on top of that, adding 3D rendering. That's a big burden to the devices, and so you cannot get the quality of Half-Life Alyx on Quest 3 that is just standalone, right? You need to wire it to the GPU so that you get the full quality. So that's our mission, to cut that plug and really make XR mobile. So now, in terms of devices, we are very close to what I would say is the iPhone 4. When the iPhone 4 was about, I think right now we have around 50 to 60 million units shipped across worldwide. This is good, but we need that ChatGPT moment or that Instagram moment, in which there's an application that will retain that engagement. I think there are some good new insights on this, like Gorilla Tag, like, and even people is streaming Gorilla Tag into YouTube and things like that. Because I mean, Beat Saber is amazing, but it was Beat Saber, and then after Beat Saber there was nothing per se when we talk about specifically gaming. So the industry is getting to that point of maturity in which like all emerging technologies, you start with a vision. Usually science fiction movies tell us how it looks like. I mean, my generation, probably your generation too, have a very specific image of how XR should be, based on Minority Report, based on Blade Runner, based on all these movies that we've seen. But bottom line is that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are the target users of this technology, and they will, just as we started using YouTube and Instagram in a very different way to what it was really originally intended to, and in its scale, it will be the same with XR. And I'm seeing that already with Gorilla Tag. And for example, in social media right now, kids hang out on.
We should talk about Gorilla Tag a little bit. Like, I suspect that unless everybody who joined today is kind of deep into VR, may not even be familiar with Gorilla Tag, but it's one of the most successful products on Oculus. And the cool thing about it, maybe you were about to get to it, is most people who do it are not necessarily even playing the game, so to speak. They're hanging out there as like a social hangout. And it tends to be like teenagers, right? So it's a younger generation than the initial target for VR hardware.
Correct, and that's the point. And this has been our thesis. Okay, so we need to build technology for the next generation. And absolutely, like a lot of people just love to watch Gorilla Tag because not everybody has a headset, right? But if you can cast what you see on the headset and you are sharing it with your friends, it's the same as just streaming on Twitch when you're playing a game, right? So that's how you get engagement in XR. And for example, these experiences that I showed you in our specific case, we always cast them into 2D, and that to me is that missing element that most of the XR percent, not only VR but also augmented reality, are missing, is that if you have that social factor and you can just share what you're experiencing with other people, that generates that curiosity. Okay, I want to be part of this. I may buy my headset. And this is what's happening with the vertical that we are working with is virtual YouTubers. They are natively virtual and in some of them in 3D, but you can only see them in a 2D screen. So our technology brings them to the real world, and the level of engagement from these fans, like just being able to talk to the VTuber, share things with them, be with your friends. So the way it works is that there's kind of like these meetups in which fans of the VTubers get together, share together how they engage with this VTuber, and is working well. So that being said, what we have discovered after now almost close to 9 years building XR is that that emotional connection, that sense of presence, and the social factor is what catalyzes XR. And that was missing because everybody was thinking always like our generation, okay, into the productivity and a lot of other things, but without that basic essential factor of the social interactivity, we're not going to move to all those other use cases. So where the industry is going, another big bottleneck was the size of the devices. Our technology mitigates part of it, but also they are getting better. You probably saw at Google I/O like 2 days ago. They announced a new XR headset with Samsung, but also wearables. And XReal is partnering with Google. So I think, and it's fair to say that just like ChatGPT suddenly surprised the general market that was not aware of that AI was that advanced, I think within the next year or two, one, the devices will be at a state that are more usable by a general consumer, and two, this just like Gorilla Tag appeared in the Quest 3, there will be this kind of killer application on these AR glasses that are more mainstream in that sense. Because another thing that we discovered by doing these mixed reality activations is that the fact that you can see your friends and also interact with other people that are not in the same room gives that level of, I want to come back, I want to do this again. Because so anyways, just I'll shut up. I'm babbling too much, but that's the bottom line. In the next 1 to 2 years, we will start seeing, just like with the iPhone economy, those killer applications that do actually motivate the user to come back and start hanging out, engaging. What the applications, Facebook, etc., you went to hang out. It's not because you just like to be there, period. So that's the only way that we will get that usage. It's going to happen within 1-2 years. This is our vision, and the devices are getting better and better. So we'll have that chat GPT moment very soon, and it will take the industry by storm.
Well, I think we can relate back to what you're building, though, based on what you saw as the trajectory of the industry, because you're describing XR as something that's going to be increasingly social. And for those who don't know how people are using it, we just talked about Gorilla Tag. Well, Gorilla Tag started as a game, but it's used as essentially a social platform, a hangout platform. And this is what people are actually doing with it. And this newer generation, which are embracing VR and XR devices, are not necessarily using it the exact way that we might have originally conceived of, right? Like we might have thought games was going to be the number one application of VR. It was like kind of obvious, like, hey, games, of course we're going to have that. And yes, there are games on VR, but they're not the most popular thing actually to do on VR, especially amongst this generation. So if we look at the trajectory here and it becomes increasingly social, I guess, what does that mean from a tech standpoint? So you were showing us this earlier video where you've got, in that case, an actress being mapped to mocap and rendering themselves as a VTuber, an avatar representation in XR space. Well, that could be the future where everybody's interacting socially, and it's not just the one person, it's like a whole bunch of people in a space. So you've got all of these concurrent streams mapping motion information to avatars along with voice and motion and animation, probably even real-time AI, just to even smooth out the gaps and be able to interpret what's going on and present it in something that looks reasonably synchronized. So that to me then defines the use cases for your platform, right? So that becomes the technology requirements. Can we kind of bring it back to Mawari a little bit now in terms of like how you see these trends impacting the technology that you're building? And then let's expand back to DPIN again. Like how hard is this to do in DPIN? Like what are, not only we talked about the advantages of DPIN, but what's hard about all this stuff that we're doing? Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing this.
Everybody would be doing, of course. So back to the technology. So we were very lucky to find out about these trends or factors of emotional connection very, very, very early. Because like most of the people involved in XR just think about XR as a pixel streaming. Okay, so you are streaming everything that is happening on the headset from the server, and that's it. But we understood from the beginning that okay, the only experiences that in XR that the user would actually spend more than 5 minutes, it was social interaction, nothing else. Like we had like very amazing demos, of stream cars or like retail, etc. We would present it to normal people, to investors, and it was so funny. Like they were allergic to the headset. Like within 30 seconds, it's like, oh, this technology is cool. Here's the headset. But then once we put them to talk to an avatar, it's like, hey, do you realize that you spent 10 minutes on the headset and it's your first time wearing a headset? They're like, no, sorry. Wow. So that was kind of that aha moment for us, and it happened very early. So, and that's the other important point, because you mentioned about AI and how it can fill in some gaps. So KDDI is one of our partners and customers as well. In 2018, they came to us with a very interesting problem. Is they had already foreseen that in Japan, because of the aging population, there's not going to be enough workforce. So their way to mitigate that is with AI with either through avatars or through robots. So they had this digital human in Unreal Engine 4 that was connected to Watson. That was funny because it's very, very old. And they wanted to stream it to iPads and to the first version of Xreal. So they actually asked a lot of startups, can you help us achieve that? Luckily, Mawari was the winner of that RFP. And that's when we realized, okay, so we need to have like ultra low latency, not just for the rendering, but also for the actual compute that the avatar needs to think and reply to you. Because the moment that the avatar takes 1, 2, 3 seconds, just as ChatGPT right now sometimes takes moment, but if it's a real person, even if the avatar is realistic, it becomes uncanny, and it breaks the engagement. So this is what we understood very early, that distributing not only compute for rendering, but just put it into the same pipeline, inferencing percent, well, not gonna call it AI, so just inferencing plus rendering into the same pipeline is what is needed to scale our use case. And it just happens to be distributed, that then it leads into deepin. Now, deepin is hard, of course, for many different reasons. So we're targeting a real world use case with Fortune 500 companies. And unfortunately, crypto has a very, very bad reputation. So, and also decentralized, for some reason, people think, okay, is really unstable, it's not gonna work. So when we have gone to some,
always good in that situation to remind people of things like the internet domain name system, for example. Like
right,
decentralization, crypto does not have a monopoly on decentralization as an idea.
correct.
Like many of the basic properties of the internet are actually decentralized. So sorry, just wanted to inject a little bit of that in there.
No, precisely, and it's a big mental blocker, because you're decentralized. Like, how am I going to trust my content in there, etc., etc. It's like, yeah, look at the internet. It's distributed, and you trust someone to have your webpage there, right? Or the other point, I always tell them, okay, so when was the last time, for example, Facebook or these platforms were down, and what was the point of failure? Versus, please look up when was the last time Bitcoin was down, and that's when people is like, holy shit. So that's just a funny but a problem for deepin. The second problem is more on the technological, is standardization in the end, because yeah, everybody has a computer, everybody would love to join the network, but if it was that easy to just scale, okay, put your computer and that's it, everybody would be doing it. So it needs a lot of R&D, so that any hardware can actually work for the purpose that we are building this. So it's not a shortcut. I would say it's the long way, but a long sustainable way. And finally, I even though, yeah, we talk of the good side of having a token incentivized community and an economy to bootstrap your network, it also comes with the other downside, that is regulations, is new technologies, new way of handling capital. So it's not always welcome in some countries. So we need to, for example, in our case, we need to always double check, okay, can we really have a distributed, decentralized network in this country or for this purpose before even we go to business.
And where are you based, actually, Luis?
The company was founded in Japan. I've been living there since 2011.
Birthplace of Bitcoin. So
yeah. Yeah, so we are in Japan, in Canada, and the US. So that's sort of three bases, but we are a very distributed team in any case.
So you talked about the technical challenges of launching a network like this, and also just sort of dealing with the regulatory picture, which isn't exactly clear. We don't exactly know what a node is. I mean, our take is nodes are software, and token incentives are serve a utility purpose within this network. So, but hope everybody has a different opinion on this. Certainly, outside of the United States, there are a lot of geographic regimes that really embrace it, and it seems like the U.S. may be going in that direction as well. So hopefully that'll be the
I hope
continuing
so.
theme
Yeah.
here. What do you want to tell other DPIN founders out there? Like, we're both DPIN founders. I think a lot of people are looking at this and they're in the earliest stages. Like, what should people know before they step into this?
Well, first of all, that it's a long ride. It's a long and very exciting ride, but yeah, you need to be conscious that it's gonna take time, but it is a sustainable way to build your business and really achieve your mission. That's all I can say. Like, um, most people call us like overnight wonders because we raise, a huge amount of cash or whatever. But I started a company in 2017, and I knocked tons of doors before actually someone would believe, okay, yeah, this technology needs a place to be. So yeah, it's just be patient and work hard. But if Deepin really provides that extra value to your business, go for it, because Deepin indeed is the future.
Yeah, thanks for that, Luis. I mean, here's what I'd say, and it's for founders. It's really for anybody in this ecosystem. Like, crypto has a terrible track record of projects that sort of launch and then don't really do anything. So with DPIN, it solves real world problems, and I would just focus on the demand side more than the supply. I think supply is hard enough to get in this business, but too many DPIN projects focus exclusively on supply. But demand is why you're going to exist. I think there's going to be less and less of an appetite for DPIN projects where they haven't really started to vet the demand side and make sure that people are going to show up. And it's okay for it to be in a market that hasn't yet scaled out, like something that's a little bit more long-term opportunity, like in your case with XR, where Amazon won't invest in it quite yet, because that's the role of a startup, is to like go and uncover these opportunities when they're really early and you can take the risk there. But still, I think everybody's got to go and identify demand. So we've really focused that on that at Beamable. That's why we have 100 games already live on the platform, a couple million players playing these games, and a really, really rich pipeline of games shipping practically at least once a week at this point. And I just think for anybody looking at DPIN, whether you're a founder or whether you're someone who's going to back one of these projects, really scrub the demand side, because that's going to separate sort of the aspirational projects that may largely be rug pulls from the actual substance in this market. And it's a market I really believe in. I think it is the market that will pull away from the rest of crypto. I know it was supposed to be DeFi a few years ago, and I'm still a believer in DeFi, but it largely will support a crypto native audience until everybody uses crypto, right? But
Correct.
with DPIN, everybody is the customer. You don't have to be crypto native, and therefore it does have this inherent substance behind it that can start to scale up. Look for demand.
Exactly, I 100% agree, and I have a new mission: is to spread this word at AWE. Let's see how the XR community reacts to, okay, join the network, put your server, you're part of the community, and you will get incentivized. Like, instead of paying all your money to the hyperscalers, you can actually be part of this.
All right, so it sounds like people could meet you at AWE. Maybe that's in June, right? June 10th. So
Yes,
that's a
correct.
place maybe people, if they're curious about what you're doing, could meet you. In the meantime, where do they go if they want to learn more about Mawari?
Mawari.net is our main website. Actually, we just launched our new website 2 days ago. So yeah, it tells very clearly like all our mission and vision. And yeah, socials. We have a Discord, Telegram, and X. So just go to Mawari XR. All the official links are there because just like anything in crypto, we have a lot of imposters now. So be careful.
Yeah. So we got the official website scrolling on the bottom right here. So go to Mawari.net. You can learn all about what Luis is doing in XR to create a DPIN network to service the growing XR industry. And if you want to learn about a DPIN for game developers, that's what we do at Beamable. So go to beamable.com. That's more for customers. You can go to beamable.network if you want to learn about what we're doing in the protocol. And if you're curious about the token launch and things coming up with that, it's a few months down the road. We haven't said anything about dates and whatnot, but that's the website to go and join the community and keep an eye on things. So Luis, we're at the top of the hour. Thanks so much for taking some time. Thanks to all of you in the community for showing up here and listening. We've got nearly 500 people here watching live, learning about what both of us are doing, Luis. So hopefully this helps you connect with new members of your community as well. But just want to thank everybody for your time because it's so valuable. And you used that last hour with us of all the things that you could do with your time. Luis, thanks again. This has been a really fun conversation. Hope you just enjoy luck because luck always helps in crypto, but really just keep on building and build something that the world needs. So congratulations on the success so far.
Likewise, thanks. And it's good to connect because always we also been fan of Beamable since a while ago. So it's good to connect. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Okay, Luis, it's been a pleasure. Until next time, everybody, we'd love to see you back at any of these live streams. This one runs weekly at noon Eastern time every week. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.